the AFC is clearly the quarterback conference. And that is obvious, right? There's a bunch of young guys in there, and I just ran through 3 of them, and there are others that we name. And Domonique, does it feel like there's one guy whose jersey I know your son likes to wear a lot of the time, who has, I'm not sure what the right word is, receded a tad from the conversation?
I mean, he's definitely receded from the conversation because he missed a lot of games this season and he's not in the playoffs. And you're talking about Lamar Jackson. Obviously, I think he'll be back in the conversation. I have no reason to believe that he got substantially worse. I understand that his style of play is not going to be a 20-year Tom Brady type career, but that team is still really talented, still well run and well coached. And Lamar Jackson is still, remember, he's the MVP at 22 years old. And we were talking at the beginning of this season about how he should be in the MVP conversation because he was doing so much with so little there. So let's not get carried away and think that Lamar Jackson is not in this group. He's not here right now because of what happened this season, but he's just as impactful on his team and their style of play. You know how every week we talk about how San Francisco was a bad matchup for people because they were physical and they ran the hell out of the football? Guess what the Ravens do? The same thing. Play good defense and smash people in the mouth, and not very many teams in the modern age of football are built to play defense against a power rushing attack like the Ravens have.
That's fair, and that team was decimated by injury around him. Yeah. But Marcus, it does sort of make me hearken back to a conversation that you've had strongly on this program over the recent years about whether the style of play they employ is a problem to the extent that it just sets the quarterback up to get hit so much that eventually injury becomes a concern. Does this rise to that in your view?
G is hard because I still contend that we've never seen anything like Lamar Jackson. But to your point, man, the injuries were a part of this season for him too. This Ravens team was decimated by injury, and they would have been in the playoffs had it not been for losing their whole team throughout the course of a season or guys missing games. But when I look at Lamar's type of play, it's always been longevity for me. You've heard me say on this show 1,000 times, evolve the passing game, because eventually that is what you're going to have to go to. And he's going to have to materialize himself into a way where he can play both ways. I can take off. I can get downfield. I can do what Lamar Jackson does. And then I need to beat you from the pocket. And we're going to keep it 100 on every quarterback in the NFL. Lamar Jackson better stop throwing interceptions, because that's what he was associated with before he got out of this season with injuries and things like that. If he takes care of the football, he's right there in the tier with all of these other guys. He just does it a different way, as Foxy alluded to. But the Baltimore Ravens are going to be a good football team. They are going to be a part of the conversation in the playoffs, and Lamar Jackson still will have dynamic plays, dynamic games where he's supplanted in the conversation with all of these other guys. It just won't look the same.
What do you think, Jeff?
It's a what have you done for me lately league. I mean, listen, Patrick Mahomes had a bad half, and we have blasted him. You know what I mean? Bad half, man. Like, and like Andy Reid said, to go to his 3rd Super Bowl in a row, and we'll put him up there and say, hey, man, he didn't get it done. So when you think about what Lamar Jackson done, I get he was an MVP in 2019, but the conversation because of injury and really we talked about Patrick Mahomes struggling in the middle of the season and talking about what he wasn't doing well. Well, guess what? Lamar didn't do great against the blitz. Like Swagoo just said, he was turning the ball over. There were things that he was doing as a player, and then he gets hurt, and here's the biggest factor. He's not practicing, and so you can't evolve and develop a passing game with your quarterback when your receivers are hurt, your quarterback's hurt, guys are missing time, and, you know, from COVID, there are a number of different reasons. It's not excuses, it's reasons, but his performance was not of standard of what he's looking for this season. So when you're talking about the other guys and they're making it to championship games and Super Bowls and all those different conversations, he has to get himself back in there by winning, because again, in a half, people are flipping on Mahomes. Think about a whole season of struggles. That's why the conversation is being had the way it is.
Danny?
Yeah, I think he's in the right place, right? I think he's in the right organization. I have faith in that organization, that coaching staff, that front office to keep the structure around him good and find a way to win with him. Too often the conversation about Lamar Jackson focuses on what he can't do, right, his shortcomings. But what he can do is astounding. astounding and has the ability to elevate a team beyond just good into great when we've seen it. So I think with that coaching staff, with John Harbaugh, with that front office, the way they operate their organization, I think he's set up for success. I think he'll get a contract extension. They'll figure out a way to work around that. And the AFC, I do think it's funny, though, that John Harbaugh is telling his brother to go coach in the NFC.
Right.
The AFC has got too many quarterbacks.
Well, I think that's pretty much right. Domonique, I'll give you the final word because this one I think is a little more personal to you.
No, I mean it's not even personal. It's just logical. Like the man was in MVP conversation at the beginning of the season, and I understand that he has some injury concerns, but that team was destroyed. The idea that he has been like downgraded relative to these other quarterbacks to me seems a bit absurd. And I would throw on top of it the fact that he's unique. Yes, I'll give him that. And somehow for him, it's the only time that unique becomes a bad thing. Like he's a special player. And even when he's hurt, like we're talking about him getting hurt as if Joe Burrow's not coming off a torn ACL, as if Patrick Mahomes didn't dislocate his knee, as if, well, Josh Allen can't be hurt because that man is a Terminator, but he runs the ball just as aggressively as Lamar Jackson. So maybe the conversation around Lamar Jackson is going to change, but it's not going to be for me. Like I'm certainly not going to sit here and pretend like we can put Lamar Jackson like a tier below all of these guys. He's done it. He's got an MVP trophy in his second year and was balling out at the beginning of this season.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.